In this video we're going to cover a cake board, but we're going to do it in stripes. So I've got my two colours that I want, because I'm going to do a nice bright children's cake. So I've got an orange and yellow fondant, and I'm just going to roll those out. Take one first. I'm going to roll it till it's quite thin. Just make sure it's not sticking to your work surface by lifting it up and moving it around. Now I tend to dust mine with corn flour. I do have a video on making my little corn flour duster as well. So I just want to make sure that it's as wide as my board, a piece of fondant. So just make sure you've not got any air bubbles or anything in it. I'm going to have quite thick stripes, so I'm going to use a ruler for guidance. So I'm just going to cut at either side of my ruler. So I'll cut a few stripes. Now you can either do it with a knife or with a pizza cutter, whichever you find easier. Okay, so we're going to cut along there, and we'll cut down the other side too. And then we'll do the same again, so line it up. Okay, so we'll leave it at that many because I don't think we're going to need loads of stripes with them being that thick. And I'm just going to move these stripes now to the side while we then cut our orange ones. Just be careful when you pick them up that you don't stretch them. So we're going to do exactly the same with the orange, and we're going to cut out the stripes. Okay, so you just want to make sure it's the same kind of thickness as what you've rolled your yellow one out, and you're going to do exactly the same again. We're just going to move our orange strips to one side. Just try and move them over a little bit. And we're going to bring in our cake board. So just using a little bit of water, you're just going to brush that all over your cake board. You don't want to drown it, just a little bit to dampen it all over. Right to the edges. Okay. And we're going to start with one of our stripes. Careful not to stretch it, and we're going to try and start in the centre. Okay. Now, I'm not very good at putting things on very even, so I'm going to use the ruler that I've cut around to just push to make sure that it is in a straight line either side, and it will just move the fondant slightly to make sure it is in line. Okay. So once that's on, we're going to add a yellow one. So we're going to take our yellow one, and we're just going to push it right up against it at the side, like so. Just make sure it's long enough to fill your gap. Mine's just slightly too short there, so I'm just going to stretch it out just a little bit, making sure they fit together nicely. Just smoothing it down. My orange feels ever so slightly a little bit higher up than the orange, so I'll just smooth that down a little bit with my finger. Again, just making sure it's in a straight line. So I'll take my next piece of orange. In fact, I won't use that one because I've just stuck my finger in it a little bit and caught it. So next piece of orange on. Again, making sure it's in line, like that. Smoothing it down. And we're just going to keep going like that. Okay, and for the end two little bits, I'm just going to make sure the board's still wet. So add a little bit of extra water onto those little end bits. And I'm just going to cut this yellow one in half because it's quite thick and we've only got little gaps at either end. Just make sure you use the straight edge against the stripe, not the edge that you've just cut. Okay, now if it's really big, you might find it doesn't stay on, so we'll just cut the excess at either end off and then try pushing that back in place like so. So once you've got all your stripes on, what we're going to do now is trim around the edge of the board. So just make sure you've got a sharp knife that's clean. Mine's got a bit of icing on, so you can just wipe it against an offcut of icing like that to try and clean the blade a little bit. Don't don't know if you can see properly because the sun's coming in. So now to cut around my board, just be careful that your stripes don't drop off as you're doing this. I'm going to run my knife against the edge of my board. Okay, just be careful that you don't move your stripes along as you're doing it. So again, just smoothing the edge slightly with your finger as you're going round. I'm just going to wipe the blade clean again. And you're going to do this all the way around. So you've got all your stripes on now, just make sure there's no gaps between each one and that it's nice and smooth around the edge. Okay, and then I would leave it to dry before you add a cake on top of that, otherwise you'll find that you move it around a little bit and it squidges about and then your lines will be all over the place. So I'll finish mine off with a ribbon and I'll show you it finished. Thank you for watching.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.